Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're diving into a fascinating and honestly kind of unsettling topic. We are going to be exploring how the intense societal pressure to achieve this perfectly idealized version of success has evolved over the last century. We're talking about a culture that has basically normalized deception, performance, and ultimately massive burnout. We're going to dig into some brilliant sociological research that breaks down exactly why we feel this burning need to fake it until we make it.
So to get us started, think about this. What on earth connects a 1920s bootlegger, a modern Tinder con artist, and your very own social media feed? I mean, it sounds like the setup to a weird joke, right? But as you'll see throughout our analysis today, while the technology we use changes at absolute lightning speed, our core human behaviors and that desperate desire to project success remain exactly the same.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. We're covering the pursuit of success, societal strain, the illusions we build, how tech amplifies the con, modern hustle culture, and finally, the true price of success. Part 1, the pursuit of success and the evolution of a dream. Now, to really grasp this, we have to look back at the American dream. When that term was coined in 1931, it actually focused on the pursuit of equality, liberty, and happiness. But after World War I, something major shifted in the culture. That dream completely mutated into an absolute, laser-focused obsession with accumulating material wealth. Which brings us to Part 2, societal strain and deviance and why we do it. So, how do we make sense of this cultural obsession with wealth? Sociologist Robert Merton gave us this amazing intellectual toolkit called strain theory. Basically, society practically screams at us that we absolutely must be wealthy and successful to have any value. But let's be real, not everyone has the economic means or the right connections to actually achieve that. And that massive gap between society's allowed demand for success and a person's actual reality, it causes severe psychological strain. And when people are strained, they often adapt by innovating, which honestly is just a really polite sociological way of saying they turn to rule-breaking or illegal stuff. Think about F. Scott Fitzgerald's famous character, Jay Gatsby. He turned to underworld bootlegging just to fund this lavish, over-the-top lifestyle he thought he needed to win over his dream girl. Later on, Robert Agnew came along and expanded on this with general strain theory, or GST. He pointed out that, hey, this pressure isn't just about cash. Strain also comes from failing to achieve goals, losing the good things in our lives, or dealing with really negative stuff like insults and social rejection. I mean, Gatsby wasn't just broke in the beginning. He was heartbroken, and he was completely ostracized by the old money elite. That kind of deep psychological pain is a huge driver for why people create false realities. So the question is, how do everyday people cope with all this pressure? Moving to Part 3, the front stage illusion, and how we actually fake it. What's really fascinating here is this concept called dramaturgy. It was introduced by sociologist Erving Goffman, and he used this brilliant theater metaphor. He suggested that we're all basically actors playing a role to fit in with social norms. We have this highly curated front stage where we perform for the public, and then we have an authentic backstage where we drop the act and just exist in private. You can see this dynamic clear as day when you compare the two. The front stage is all about projecting extreme wealth and success, right? It's Gatsby throwing these wild, extravagant parties or people showing off fake photos from Oxford. But the backstage? That hides the messy reality. Poverty, criminal origins, crushing debt, and just deep-seated insecurity. But what happens when you take those raw psychological needs and hand them modern digital tools? Let's look at Part 4, amplifying the con. Same story, new tech. So while Gatsby's grift in the 1920s was pretty localized, like he literally had to physically throw a massive party to show off, the digital age has just wildly scaled up our ability to deceive. Enter Shimon Hayutz, who you might know from the documentary as the Tinder Swindler. Hayutz used Instagram, where you had over 100,000 followers, to project this massive global front stage of private jets and luxury suits. Technology didn't invent the con, it just handed it a massive megaphone. Researchers actually know that keeping your real backstage life a secret is absolutely essential if you want to protect that generated image. It's literally a survival mechanism for the fake persona. The Tinder Swindler exploited vulnerable women looking for love, using their money to fund a fraudulent Ponzi scheme just to keep his front stage looking flawless. He played the ultimate role, and digital tools made it incredibly convincing. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, I'm not a 1920s bootlegger or an international con artist. But hold on, because these exact same sociological pressures apply directly to our everyday lives. That brings us to part 5, modern hustle culture, the everyday performance. Today, that intense stream to succeed manifests as hustle culture. It's this compulsive lifestyle of just excessive work and the pursuit of constant, nonstop productivity. Researchers studying modern youth found that neoliberal economic pressures, things like the gig economy and short-term contracts, they force millennials to view themselves as constant economic actors. We are pressured to be entrepreneurs of the self, constantly optimizing and proving our value to the market. And this is exactly what that performance looks like online. You'll scroll past posts asking, how multitasking are you? While someone shows off multiple screens and digital meetings running all at the same time. Productivity is aggressively performed online now. Your busyness is your social currency. It is your front stage. There's this incredible digital ethnography study that actually broke down how we curate this front stage into 4 main themes. First, the hustle bustle, showing off side hustles and proving you're always on. Second, achievement and salary, posting these perfect timelines of rapid career growth. Third, lifestyle, flexing trendy startup office perks and aesthetic coffee cups. And finally, motivational aspirations, where people literally romanticize their own exhaustion as if it's a badge of honor.
But just like Gatsby, the math doesn't always add up. There's a severe disconnect between the front stage and the backstage. Sometimes, in response to viral posts glorifying huge salaries, real users will punch right through that illusion. I absolutely love this relatable, sarcastic comment researchers captured from a user who just wrote, "My reality is that I have small salary and no work-life balance." The highly curated online success is so often a complete mirage compared to the harsh economic realities that everyday workers are actually dealing with.
The tension here is just palpable. The front stage illusion shows these glamorous corporate lifestyles, startup ping pong tables, and endless free snacks. But the backstage reality is exhaustion, dark under-eye circles, and deep structural inequality. I mean, there are literally viral posts of people bragging about working from the hospital, typing away while hooked up to IV drips. It masks severe vulnerability under the guise of dedication, which really forces us to ask, what happens when we live entirely for that front stage? And that brings us to our final section, part 6, the price of success. Because the crucial point is this: the consequences of living a curated illusion are, frankly, devastating. Whether it's Gatsby ending in literal tragedy because his whole identity was built on a fragile lie, or the Tinder Swindler's victims facing utter bankruptcy, or everyday modern millennials experiencing severe psychological burnout, eventually, the intense strain of the performance breaks the performer. F. Scott Fitzgerald famously wrote that Gatsby paid a high price for living too long with a single dream. And wow, that 1920s quote feels incredibly urgent today, doesn't it? When we sacrifice our authentic, backstage selves just to project an imagined, culturally mandated version of success on the front stage, the cost, both to our mental health and to our society, is astronomical. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The next time you're scrolling through your feed and you feel that familiar, heavy strain of not doing enough, ask yourself, if the success you see online is just a curated front stage, what price are you paying to perform for the audience? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and hey, maybe give yourself permission to step off the stage for a little while.